Thank you very much for that introduction. I'm Rhian Kelly, Chief Sustainability Officer at National Grid, and I'm really pleased to be here today to talk to you all about what we're doing at National Grid to be a responsible business. I really like the last presentation from Virginia, and I guess I'm thinking you all know who P&G are, and you've probably all heard of National Grid, but you might not know what we do, so I thought I'd give you a brief intro to National Grid before I talk about what we do as a responsible business. So we own all the pylons that you'll see in England and Wales. We transport electricity across the country into people's homes and businesses. We also own some of the wooden poles you'll see in the East Midlands, the West Midlands, South Wales, and down in the Southwest, where we actually put the electricity into people's homes and businesses directly. So what I thought I'd do today is talk to you a little bit about what we're doing at National Grid to play a role in enabling a clean, fair, and affordable energy transition. I'm going to set out what we do and how we define ourselves and how we've set up our commitments in our Responsible Business Charter. We first launched this charter in 2020 when we set out for us what responsibility means for us as a business and the role that we thought we could play and the commitments that we would make to demonstrate how we're going to play our part in this. We want to be an organisation that's about more than just profits. We want to be about helping the transition, helping our customers through the transition, playing our part in reducing our impact on the environment. Probably the most material thing we can do as an electricity networks business is actually enable the decarbonisation of the wider economy by transporting clean energy into homes and businesses. And that's probably our most material issue. But in addition, we obviously need to play our part reducing our impact on the environment through our emissions, through what we do in the land we own and what we do with the natural environment, but also in terms of how we engage with our communities and our customers and support them, and then also what we do for our employees, how we make sure that we transition our skills so that we're equipped to face into the net zero future. So we first launched our Responsible Business Charter in 2020, and we refreshed it last year after 3 years. And partly we refreshed our Responsible Business Charter because the shape of our business had changed. So we'd sold some businesses in the US, we'd sold our gas transmission business in the UK, and we'd also bought this local electricity network, National Grid Electricity Distribution, the wooden poles that I mentioned a few minutes ago. And because the shape of our business had changed, the emissions portfolio had changed really, so then we felt it was time to refresh all of our commitments, make sure they match up to the evolving expectations externally, they matched up to what our stakeholders and our communities expected of us, and also they matched what we expected of ourselves. So we've taken a more simplified approach, and we've focused on 3 areas, 3 pillars we call them, where we can make a difference. We can go above and beyond in our business and be a responsible business. And then underpinning it, we've got some fundamentals, and I'm just going to give you a brief highlight of each of these pillars and what's included in them. So the first one you'll see on the screen is the environment. We have set ourselves emission reduction commitments. We're committed to net zero by 2050, but also we have now committed to 1.5 degree near-term targets on Scope 1 and Scope 2 for 2030, a 60% reduction, and a 37.5% reduction in our Scope 3 emissions by 2034. And these have all been validated by the Science Based Targets Initiative, SBTi, and we're really proud of the fact that we've been able to set these very ambitious targets. What we're also doing now, having set the new targets, is refreshing our climate transition plan using the latest guidance from the TPT. So using our new targets, refreshing our climate transition plan, setting out how we're going to hit those targets and what it means for our business. So those are our commitments and our activities on emissions. But we've also looked again in this refresh at nature and looked at actually the difference in our business. We're about 50-50 UK and Northeast America. And we had a sort of light bulb moment on nature. It's maybe less understood and tougher challenge than emissions, where I think many of us have been focused for many years. But what we noticed is that in the UK, There's really a need to restore our natural environment, so we have a commitment to improve the land which we operate by 10%. But in the northeast USA, there's actually plenty of natural land, so we made a commitment to protect what we've got. And it's one of the only places in our Responsible Business Charter where we've split the commitments we've made in the UK with the commitments we've made in the US, because it made sense to do so. So our second pillar then is our customers and our communities, and I'm going to spend a bit more time on this when I've covered this slide. But to give you a brief feel, inside that pillar we focused on what we should be doing on affordability to helping our customers make sure this journey is affordable as it can be for everybody. We've also looked at what we can be doing as a business to support skills and employability in our communities, and also what we should be doing in terms of going into and being part of the transition in our communities, the way we show up and the volunteering that we can do. And then finally, how do we make sure that this works for our customers? In our third pillar, we focus on how we can be a leader in our industry in colleague health and well-being. And we have a continued focus in our business on DEI. We want to be, at National Grid, one of the most diverse, equitable, and inclusive organisations of the 21st century. And we're looking to accelerate in our refreshed Responsible Business Charter all the progress that we made in the last 3 years. We've set clearer targets to 2025, and rather than, as we did in our first Responsible Business Charter, focusing on just diversity, in the second iteration, we focused on gender and ethnicity in particular, and how we can increase our population in terms of gender representation, ethnic representation by 2025. And it's quite pertinent to be talking about this today because it's obviously International Women's Day, and I'm really proud that in our business we have 6 business units, and 4 of those are run by women, and about 50% of our senior leadership group are women. So we've made a lot of progress, but there's more to go. And then this bit along the bottom, the business fundamentals, we felt we wanted to include it. It's got some really important commitments, and it sort of underpins everything we do. But it's also table stakes. It's the things that every business should be doing, that everybody should expect of us and we expect of ourselves. We put a bit of an extra focus on resilience, adaptation, human rights, ethics and governance. But it's the sort of table stakes for us being a responsible business. The one thing we have dialed up there is we're doing a trade association review, looking at all the trade associations we're members of in the UK, the US, and looking at how aligned they are with our positions in their positioning and their lobbying of governments in Europe, in the UK, and in Northeast America. So the bit that I wanted to pause on is the social bit, the people bit. I've been in this role for about 18 months, and one of my mottos has become don't forget the S in ESG. I feel it's really easy when we get together to talk about sustainability, to talk about the environment, to talk about emissions, increasingly to talk about nature, but often people and communities get missed out of their discussions and they get forgotten. And so we've put an emphasis in our Responsible Business Charter and these refreshed commitments to what we can be doing with our communities and with our customers. And I touched a little bit on some of the things that we're doing and wanted to go into a bit more detail. So particularly on affordability, how do we make sure that we play our part in helping our customers and our communities make the energy transition and make it as affordable as possible, particularly for the most vulnerable? And that's been a very pressing issue this winter and last winter in terms of the cost of living crisis and the cost of energy bills. So what we decided to do was put £65 million worth of shareholder money into an energy support fund to help with the immediate cost of living crisis. And we partnered up with about 5 organisations, some big, some well-known, some smaller, to sort of do what we play our part in working with them to sort of ease the cost of living crisis. We worked with Citizens Advice, and I'm most proud of the partnership with them, not simply because it was a monetary donation, because we also had 12 of our own employees seconded into Citizens Advice for 12 months. We added to their headcount when they needed it most. They were literally manning the phones. But it was really helpful for us as an organisation because they understood what it was like to be on the front line, what it was like for people who are really struggling. And they have been able to bring that information and that experience back into our business to help us better understand what it might be like for our customers. And they were so excited to come back and engage in the business and share that learning with us. We do have a YouTube video. I wasn't going to play it for you. I thought you could all find it. I thought I'd spare you a video, but it's worth watching because it's quite an emotional experience for the employees who worked at Citizens Advice. We've also partnered with the Fuel Bank Foundation, which I'm a big fan of, and it basically gives people fuel vouchers, money for people who simply don't have any money to pay their energy bill. It gives them a short-term stopgap to help them over that really tough time. And I was in one of their community centres, well, a community centre in South East London recently, where they've partnered up because people come to the community centre as a sort of food bank, and at the same time then able to access these fuel poverty vouchers or the end of fuel vouchers. And it's really important, and although it was important last winter, I'll tell you what, it's really important this winter as well. And then in addition to the sort of really urgent need for those who are literally in crisis today, we've also partnered with the National Energy Action and also affordable warmth solutions to provide sort of longer-term energy efficiency measures into homes to help people with their energy bills and energy efficient measures and reducing their bills over the longer term. And I was lucky enough to be in the West Midlands, I think earlier this year or maybe last year, looking at a home that was getting solid wall insulation, free of charge actually, and feeling sort of the support that we can provide into the community and the importance of these partnerships that we have. We have, over the last year of doing this Energy Support Fund, supported 40,000 households and 415 individuals have positively been helped. So affordability is one of the bits that we work on at National Grid to support our communities and customers. The second bit is around skills and employability, not just our own workforce, actually, as part of the energy transition, but also ensuring that we do what we can in our communities and that we, if we put it together, that we attract new talent into our business. So we work with schools between 3 and 15 to sort of engage and inspire people and to sort of get them interested in being in the energy sector, get them interested in jobs in the climate change world. And then we also work with organisations like Catch-22 and Young Enterprise, sort of from 16 to 24-year-olds, to sort of help them with CV writing, with interview practice. We give them work experience to sort of give them a feel for what it might be like to work at an organisation like National Grid or, frankly, other organisations in the energy sector. And we pull some of these young people into our business and we try to help pull them into other energy jobs as well. And in the first 2 years of existence are this programme, which we call Grid for Good. We've had 29 young people who've secured full-time roles at National Grid, and we want to scale that up and bring more people into our business and more people working with our partners, working with our supply chain, more people into the energy sector more broadly. And we do this as well by getting our own employees engaged. So we have a commitment to 500,000 employee hours by 2030. And I think it's really important that we draw on the passion and enthusiasm and the knowledge that we have in our employees at National Grid, that we use them to inspire people to come into the energy sector, particularly working with young people from disadvantaged backgrounds so that we bring in sort of a more diverse talent. And one of the examples I've got of this, which I love, is an environmental education centre that we have at Bishopswood. It's by one of our substations, but we have preserved the land, so it is actually part of our nature commitment in terms of restoring natural environment. But in the middle of this beautiful woodland, we have built an education centre, and we bring school children and students there. We talk about the natural environment, we talk about climate change, we inspire for energy jobs, and we have students coming from universities to do studies. And for me, this is a great example of how you can blend skills, employability, you can build enthusiasm, you can inspire, but you can also do it in a wonderful natural setting. So the final thing I wanted to leave you with is that I think everybody has a role to play in this energy transition. And you'll have heard that from the previous speaker and talking about the products and services that we use in our homes. But I think if we're going to make this transition work, it needs to be fair, and it needs to be just, and it needs to be equitable. And we've been doing quite a bit of thinking at National Grid on how we play our part in that, talking to our stakeholders internally, colleagues, but also externally, some of our supply chain, some of our charity partners, also our unions, about to understand what it means to them for us to make sure this is fair and just transition. And I think what it's done is reinforce the need that everybody needs to come with us, that it can't just be a transition for those that can afford it. And no matter who you are, where you are, everybody can do something and has a role to play. But it's also highlighted a bit the need for better communications, a better explanation of what this will mean for our customers, for our communities, which is why we have launched the Great Grid Upgrade. And it's a sort of communications campaign that we're running. It's about the overhaul that we're doing. It's the largest overhaul of the electricity grid in years. We've got to build in the next 7 years what we've built in the last 30 years to bring new forms of renewable energy onto the grid. But the point of the campaign, the Great Grid Upgrade, is to tell everybody and explain everybody the benefits of doing this, that if we are able to make this upgrade happen, then we will be able to give everybody cleaner power into our homes and businesses, and everybody will be able to come on us with this journey. So I think I'm trying to say that it's a two-way process, that it can't be organisations just telling, it has to be organisations listening, engaging, and having dialogues with your customers and your communities if we're to make this transition successful. So I hope you found this useful explanation of what we do at National Grid. And I hope you've taken away my motto, that it's don't forget the S in ESG. Thank you very much for listening to me and for letting me share with you what we think at National Grid and how we want to enable a clean, fair and affordable energy transition.
Thank you, Rhian. Just a few quick questions from me, actually. I just wanted to pick up on something there. You were talking about Scope 3 emissions, and it's something that we discussed at length yesterday in a few of our panels. I think you were aiming for, was it 37% by 2034?
37.5%, yes.
Yeah, so what's the biggest challenge that you face in your Scope 3?
There's probably two bits of our Scope 3, or three bits. One is sold electricity. So it's electricity we sell into people's homes. And in many ways, it's actually something that's quite tricky for us to manage directly ourselves. We rely on the decarbonisation of the overall grid. We don't have any energy generation in the UK, so it is about what goes along our lines. So we're then playing our part by connecting more renewable energy into the grid to make sure the decarbonisation of the overall grid goes down. The other part is in our US business, we sell gas directly into people's homes. We're on the bill. So we need to play our part in supporting them, reducing their gas demand. But actually, like many bits of Scope 3, it's not something we can do on our own. We need to work with policymakers and legislators in the US to create the right frameworks to allow us to invest in things like renewable natural gas and hydrogen. And the other part is the products and services that we buy and working with our supply chain. So in our refreshed Responsible Business Charter, we made some commitments to have science-based targets for 75% of our supply chain in the UK and for 50% of our US supply chain to be thinking about setting targets of their emissions. So it's sort of those three measures, but I think like many others, Scope 3 is one of the trickiest bits to get at because it's not something we all have direct control of ourselves. We have to work with others to achieve it.
Yeah. You also talked about upgrading the grid and talked quite a bit about that. Why is that important and what's the biggest gain from doing the upgrade?
Yeah, so basically we are building lots of new renewable energy in the UK, particularly in the North Sea and all the offshore wind. And if we want to get that from the coast into the urban areas and the cities and people's homes and businesses, we're just simply going to have to build more infrastructure to make that happen. So that's the sort of the biggest thing for us really in our impact in terms of the UK economy and what we can do to decarbonise it, is bringing all of that renewable electricity onto the grid and into people's homes. And we need to build more. So we won 17 big major infrastructure projects and we're building them in the next couple of years and building them quickly to make sure that we can do this upgrade so that we can make sure the electricity, the renewable energy gets to people's homes.
Very important, of course. Okay, that's all we've got time for. Thank you very much, Rhian. Thank you.